My name is Kathy Wiley, and the name of my company is Poco Dolce Confections here in San Francisco.
Great. And can you tell me what you make?
We make all sorts of chocolates and confections. Our signature is our bittersweet tile, which we started doing back in 2000. I started experimenting in 2002, 2003, and that's a small square of solid chocolate with different ingredients inside and then sprinkled with a little sea salt. And we do a bar line, we do peanut brittle, spicy and sea salts. We have a little toffee square covered in bittersweet sea salt, and then we just have fun with bonbons and all sorts of other stuff.
You said you started experimenting in 2002, 2003. Can you tell me a little bit about that process?
Sure. Basically, I started a company in 2002 that had low barriers to entry. It was baking, so with an emphasis on Italian sweets and confections. Most of the things that I got business-wise was more American, you know, because you're feeding cafes and stuff. And pretty soon, from a business standpoint, I knew I didn't want to be boutique or volume. Okay. So I quickly moved. Within that first year, I started experimenting with chocolate.
And why did you not want to be boutique or volume?
I think that volume baking can be pretty wasteful, but and boutique just wasn't really where I wanted to be. The most important thing is when you're creating your own business, you get to do whatever you want. So you may as well really look at it and make sure it's what you want. When I worked out of bakeries like in Daly City and here in the city, you see that your staff has to be in there on holidays as opposed to being with their family because you got to get that fresh product out there. And I knew I wanted something that was, I don't mind, you know, everybody, you know, pulling together for the holidays and really working hard, which is what we do, but then you should be able to go home and relax and be with your family.
You said that you need to make sure when you own your own business that it's what you want. What is it that you wanted?
Well, to never have to use a resume again. But, you know, I think it's having that control over your own destiny of feeling like, frankly, you can only blame yourself if you're not succeeding kind of thing. It's like you know it's everything you put into it is what you're going to get out of it. And it's very satisfying for that reason. You know, we could probably be a little bit better at conveying how handmade everything is. It's kind of surprising how everything is done in a small little bowl, all the tiles. So I kind of wish people knew a little bit more about that, but if they got a sense of how handcrafted it was and the care that went into it, that would also make me very happy.
So how do you convey currently that idea?
You know, I guess in the day of social media, we get to post pictures on Facebook, and that allows us, we've had a couple people do videos also, and that allows us to get the word out. We're getting better at doing photography of the production, and we share that on Facebook, and we use those pictures wherever we can. So that's always fun. Back when it was me doing demos, I could say, oh, I made this an hour ago, you know, which is also fun.
And why is that important to you, for people to know that?
It just shows that, you know, you're the one doing it. It's not like it's going outsourced to somebody doing all the work for you. It's physically being made by you, delivered by you, packaged by you. Well, I think there's part of the maker movement is that people really want to know more about what they're eating or consuming. They want more of a connection to that.
Can you tell me about a time you really struggled with something here?
I guess I could just pick a few. Well, you know, getting started was really kind of tricky because I was essentially making something up completely new. So with that, it's like every decision you make begets 1,000 more decisions. So literally, you know, I dubbed my product Tiles because I wanted people to know it was a different product and they would question it and be like, well, what is this, you know? And it was for the people who wanted to try something new and would pick something up and be like, you know what, I'll try it. Sounds interesting. So I made that name up. I had to make up a shape, so which is actually hard because you're thinking in your mind, you know, how many bites is this going to be? How big? Is it too big? Is it too little? Then you have to figure out getting a mold made. And then it moves on to packaging and all that kind of stuff. So there were a lot of decisions in the beginning that were crucial, I think.
What keeps you going?
You know, before I started this company, I would change careers every few years just to try something new or take a break and go travel. And just, you know, curious about everything. But once I started doing this, everything kind of fell into place and it was very clear. And now it's fun to grow the business, you know, it's fun to see it 10 years later. I think I don't think about how much has happened in those 10 years very often, but it's good to reflect. But then you look at the next 10 years and you're like, there's your challenge.
What challenges do you foresee moving forward as you look at your future?
Well, part of it is it's my business. I'm the sole proprietor. So, you know, while I've grown it to this point in 10 years, it's all about how to do that, you know, challenging myself to do that in the future. And I think it's all about key hires, you know. What is my role going to be as we grow? And that's pretty crucial because a lot of owners will take on too much or give away too much or whatever the case may be. But you have to look at your skill set and bring people in who can complement that.
Has there been a point over the last 10 years where you felt as an owner you've taken on too much?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, I would say in the first 6 years, you know, I was my own bottleneck. It's hard because it does take financials to hire staff. But I mean, if I could recall what our start date was, I'd say it was the day we hired staff, or I hired staff. Because that's when you get to grow and you just get to look at different aspects of the business. I mean, staff is it's all about.
How did you feel when you hired your first staff member?
Overwhelmed.
Can you tell me more about that?
Well, you know, all of a sudden you've got people to manage and you're not sure. I mean, up until then it was just me. So I can figure out how much I can do, but how to measure what other people can do, and you can't express to them how you're kind of going like red, black, red, black. So it's just tough. You have to kind of make that leap before you're ready, or you'll never be ready.
What advice would you have to someone who's just starting out in this industry?
I would say talk to as many people as you can. It really is all about perseverance, but be open to adapting. You know, some people told me in the beginning, they're like, well, you can't just change your business and your product and keep your name. I'm like, nobody knows who I am? Sure I can. And that's what other companies have done, Hewlett Packard, whoever you want to talk to. You've got to adapt and keep moving. And that's another challenge, is like, how are we adapting now? Are we adapting right? Are we adapting slowly? Too fast? What's the next stage?
And my last question is, how do you define success for yourself?
That's hard. I think that as an entrepreneur, you always kind of hold milestones for yourself or goals, but I would say right now I feel successful because I have 2 amazing key members of staff. And in the last year, I've been able to, do things that I haven't been able to do for the last 10 years. Which is, as silly as it is, it's like buy a delivery vehicle. And although you saw I was late because I just did a delivery, for the most part, that's starting to move away. And so by buying a delivery car, I could get rid of my 12-year-old vehicle and get a fun new car. And, I get to move out of a studio apartment. I get to get a puppy. So that feels pretty good.